It's difficult for people to subscribe and pay $500 a month or $5,000 a year or even the $10,000 plan, right? In India. So happy to kind of, give the people kind of like in your community some of our reports for free. I think you guys do a great job. So, maybe what I'd, work with you guys on is like, over the next few months, I'll give like 1 or 2 reports that you guys can kind of share with the community. You can also translate in Hindi, Mera Hindi bahut acha nahi hai. If it's on crypto Twitter, it's too late. I studied finance, got really excited about, using math to kind of project, how the world could change by, businesses that people.
The one thing I find unique about Delphi's research is that you guys also have skin in the game, right?
But yeah, we started our fund with 1 million, and then now today we manage like around 500 to 600 mils.
That there are more crypto owners in States than dog owners.
Like it was under $10 for a while, and you could get, you could get easily a 10x from it, from where it is today, almost a 20x at some points. What if I told you the best token launch is a bad one?
So what is that secret sauce? Why is Delphi's reports so early? I want to know, it has to be something, right?
You go 100% of your crypto portfolio on whiff, that would kind of scare me.
You guys have done almost around 17 investments in crypto AI space and around 15 episodes on just that topic, on crypto AI.
Celestia is actually, I think has a lot of stuff ready to launch on it. And they're just waiting for the most opportune moment, right?
In the last 6 months, a lot of new project listings, even the reputed ones, they are kind of struggling even to maintain their listing price. I've read somewhere that Delphi is working to address this issue.
I think NFTs were super important because they kind of brought culture into crypto. And I think they will continue to have cycles.
What are you more excited about in the current days? What projects are you looking at or working on?
Is this investable? Why is it investable? What is the thesis here? How big can it get?
Lots of alphas you shared in this
so much
answer
alpha.
of yours. We're going to summarize this entire podcast in Hindi so that, that's what our channel is all about. The content of this podcast is for informational and entertainment purposes only. We are just two friends sharing our thoughts, opinions, and experiences about cryptocurrency and the broader crypto space. Nothing discussed in this podcast should be considered as financial, investment, legal, or any other form of professional advice. Hey guys, welcome to our podcast. And by the way, this is a different podcast. And you would have already realized I'm talking in English. So this has to be a little different. Excited. Before I tell you what this is about, we have a special guest. Jagdish, you are smiling and smirking. I mean, what are you more excited about?
So I'll tell you why I'm very excited about this podcast, because this hits personally. Okay. So before you introduce, I want to tell you a small story about the guest who is going to come on the podcast. So we started this whole crypto journey, whole pivot, in around 2020. Okay. So both of us were working with different entrepreneurial venture. And in every phase of your life, you have this some song or a smell which reminds you of that start of the journey. Okay. So for me, while in lockdown, so our building only allowed walking. Okay. So while walking, so I invested, I was learning about crypto. I had read a couple of books on it. I was learning Bitcoin. And I was looking for something really fundamental, which I used to do in equities. I could not find one. And then I found one podcast. And this was my go-to podcast to listen to that podcast while walking around the building in the lockdown. It became so much that the start of music of that podcast is the music which gets me to my early days of my crypto investing. And it still kind of reminds me of that phase when everything was, when the penny dropped about the crypto and the whole rabbit hole, and which was so fascinating. I still, it still brings some emotion whenever I listen to that music. So I'll let you, Sushil, introduce the podcast. So
okay, let's dive in. I mean, the guest with us, we are privileged. I mean, apart from, you guys have heard me and Jagdish talking on 2 podcasts before. This time we have a third guest with us, and more excited because he is a founder of a very unique and a respectable firm, Delphi Digital. Now, why it's unique? Because Delphi Digital is a combination of 3 arms: Delphi Research, Delphi Ventures, and Delphi Labs, where they have their own incubation projects as well. So this is a firm which started, I think, around 2018 by a bunch of friends who came together from a TradFi world, working in companies like Deutsche Bank, Bloomberg, and other such respectable firms. And in the last 6 years, they've built an amazing reputation for themselves. More than building a reputation, they've earned a lot of respect. As Jagdish said, we started our journey in the crypto space by reading their reports. So let's jump in and let's welcome the founder of Delphi Digital, Anil Lulla. Anil, thanks for being on our first podcast as a guest. Thank you very much.
Yeah, appreciate it. No, thanks for the intro. Actually, funny story about the music of Delphi podcast. The intro of
Yeah,
that podcast, Jagdish, is
yeah,
that's actually a beat that my friend made, and then you know how it says "Welcome to Delphi." You're now
yeah,
listening to Delphi podcast.
yeah,
That's
yeah.
actually my wife's saying that.
Wow,
Yeah.
wow.
But no
uh,
one knows that yet, so that's an
e-
exclusive right
exclusive. Yeah.
right here
Okay.
for you. But it's funny
Okay.
that you mentioned that. Yeah, but great to be on. Appreciate you guys having me on.
So Anil, let's get started directly. Everyone has this first question, so this is going to be a very common question. Coming come from a traditional, successful TradFi background, what got you excited into crypto and why crypto?
Yeah, I think it's a good question. Like, funny enough, obviously, most of the listeners I'm guessing are, Indian. When I was growing up, I think, we had a couple of different paths. My sister's a doctor, so she obviously went down the preferred path for
Uh,
Indian families. Me, I was always into business, into computers, into technology. So my parents always knew that I would be. My dad always said that like he knew I was never going to work for anyone else. Like I was going to want to work for myself because I just didn't like playing by other people's rules. And essentially, when I started growing up, I studied finance, got really excited about, using math to kind of project, how the world could change by, businesses that people create.
Awesome. And that, in fact, that brings me to the story when we met. So if you remember, last November in India, in Mumbai, when you were here, we thought you were here for business networking, but later we realized you were here for a wedding. So yeah,
Yeah.
congratulations on that. But coming back to the business part of it, um, we heard the fascinating stories about your Axie, about your Rune, the investments and the things what you did during those times. And the story was fascinating more because I believe when you guys started, you faced a big challenge where there was a big commitment and it was turned down by the investors. And there's a very nice story of how you guys uh, faced through this time and how you came out winning. So can you talk more about that story?
the credit card
Yeah,
story.
definitely. I'd say, yeah, that was definitely not the only challenge. Like, I think, like every turn and twist and turn, we've experienced challenges. And I think that's like, just part of entrepreneurship and part of life in generally, even if you're not starting a company, right? So just gotta like keep pushing forward. But that story in particular, we were basically, trying to start a venture fund, and we're trying to raise, $20 million, which, this was back in 2019. So, not not like a big fund, but definitely not a small one either, right? And essentially, when we were trying to raise the money, we had an anchor investor who promised us 5 million of the 20 million, and he made us fly to, we flew to London to meet him, flew to San Francisco, flew to Miami, and this is all when I was telling you guys we were very like broke. We were had $0, and we're not even making money via Delphi Research, so it was very stressful for us because not only were we spending money we didn't have, we were also spending time that we didn't have, right? Like we wanted to put that time towards growing the business, and we had to go meet this investor. But, we thought it was, a time worth it because, this guy was giving us $5 million, right?
Yeah.
And essentially when we found our first investment, which was Rune, we published a big deep dive on Delphi for all our members. It was at around 7 cents at that point. And, then, because we had done all this research, we were really convicted. We were excited about it. And we tried to call down 10% of his capital. So, $500,000. And he just did not answer our calls or anything like that. So we got kind of like, nervous. And then Rune actually dropped from 7 cents to 3 cents. And we got even more conviction. So we tried to, we got in touch with his brother actually, and his brother ended up getting us in touch with him. And he ended up saying, hey, I believe in you guys, but I don't believe in crypto right now. So, I'll have to pass, which, this is in January 2020. So like literally the worst times you could have said those words. And so at that point we were kind of like heartbroken, but we had also spent all this time and energy into creating, a fund. So we had the whole fund set up. We had our first investment picked out, and we didn't have time to kind of go find other investors. So what we did at that point, because we had no money, was just use 0% APR cards. These Capital One 18-month 0% APR cards. My founder, my best friends and my co-founders and I just, kind of levered up, which, again, I don't, recommend for everyone at all. You kind of have to be a little bit crazy to do that. But yeah, we started our fund with 1 million. And then, now today we manage like around 500 to 600 mil. So it's worked out quite well for sure. And it's allowed us to kind of, keep this fund very internal, right? So the way that Delphi Ventures works is essentially we have no outside investors, but the only way you can invest is if you're part of the team and like a high performer at one of the 3 divisions, Delphi Research, Ventures, or Labs. So that's allowed us to be more of a family office of sorts. So yeah, again, like a blessing in disguise. Yeah, for sure.
Did you meet investor afterwards later on when the room did whatever,
I
100,000?
haven't met him, but we've talked to him. He obviously has told us that it is the biggest mistake of his life.
Yeah.
But I haven't met him in real life since.
So Anil, I have more on research side question. Okay. So this also is my personal question. So I have seen you guys wrote about XE when gaming was not even a thing. Okay. I mean, like, it was laughed out when you talked about crypto and gaming. Not only that, you have been giving this hits and hits. Like, for example, 9 months ago or probably 10 months ago, you guys had a report on Ethereum, how Ethereum's underperformance versus other chains. This is like no one was talking about that. All that Solana thing is recent stuff, right? So what is that secret sauce? Why is Delphi's reports so early? I want to know. It has to be something, right? Because you have done so many times now. So tell us the
It's a
secret
good
sauce.
question. I think our research team is incredible. The 2 real things. So there's a couple things here, but there's 2 main things that we tell the research team. And before I go into that, I think it's worth talking about how we hire and find people. Like basically, I've hired most of the people across Delphi, and the way that I've done it is really just find people who are really passionate and perpetually curious about the space, and then we craft our dream roles here because we have these 3 divisions, so we can kind of do it in a way that no one else can. And then we just kind of get out of their way, right? We just kind of like let them do whatever they think is best. As far as our research process goes, the 2 kind of like pillars that we kind of like tell our research team constantly is like, 1, if it's on crypto Twitter, it's too late. It's kind of like one thing that we always say. And the way that I think about that is like, if crypto Twitter and the echo chamber is talking about it, they have to kind of go past that and try and find trends or things that are going to be talked about in, months, like you said. That helps our research team kind of like, be above that echo bubble that everyone else is constantly in, which I don't think is like the best way to invest. You kind of want to be contrarian more times than often not. Then the other thing is, if they write about something, it has to be the deepest possible report. So what we tell them is like, if I don't know what your guys' research process is like. I know you guys are Delphi subs and love our report, so I know that's probably a big part of it. But if you're reading, about a protocol like Athena, when Athena first came out, there were so many different places you could go. People could open up Twitter tabs, people could open up newsletters, people could open up podcasts. But the thing is, if you go to those sources, I think one thing you'll notice, and I think, every time I tell someone in crypto this, they always tell me that they agree, is like, it's always the same thing, just regurgitated in a different voice, right? Like maybe a few different jokes or something like that. We strictly tell our team, like, you have to write what no one else is saying. So if I read this one report about Athena from Delphi, more than someone who has read everything else about it. And I think those 2 things have helped our research team, because those are the only instructions we tell them, really. Like, now at this point, I don't even know what our research team is publishing till it's out, right? So like, I'm just like you guys. As soon as it's out, I'm like, downloading it, bookmarking it, and making sure I read it. Especially on flights is when I like read the most Delphi. I don't do anything except read Delphi reports, and that's how I feel like I stay on top of the space.
So I'll come to the current thing. Okay, so this is what I just finished the first part of the report you guys recently published, which was on crypto AI, right? The town and the square kind of report. And I want to tell everybody, it's a free report. Anybody can. It's available on Twitter or in Delphi's website. Now, so I've been listening to Delphi podcast from 4 years. So recently, what I've noticed is you guys have done almost around 17 investments in crypto AI space and around 15 episodes on just that topic on crypto AI. And anybody can see that. Probably that's my go-to space if I want to learn crypto AI. So I wanted to ask, it looks like a pivot kind of. I mean, you guys are the forefront of the venture investing. I don't know anybody who has done so many investments in crypto AI space. So I wanted to learn what has changed. What are you seeing which most people are not able to see? Because the way I
Yeah,
learn in crypto it's more
yeah,
nothing is working in crypto AI. So can you throw some
yeah.
light on that?
No, this is a really good question too. And to be honest, like, you know, I when we first started looking at AI deals, probably 9 months ago at this point, you know, I kind of was very like hesitant, right? I was a little bit
Mm,
cautious, and I thought, hey, yes, this is a great buzzword, and I think there's going to be a narrative here, but is this something that our fund should attach our name to? And like, is this something that will we see real products from? Fortunately, we have a lot of people on our team who have gone super deep on this sector, right? So just want to shout out like Tommy and Kant from the venture side, and then Ross and Ponder and Durant from our research side as well. And these guys have helped me, and there are a couple more amongst the teams too. But like those three in particular have helped me build a lot of conviction in this
mm,
intersection, and,
mm,
and that there's going to be a lot. So the way that I think about it is, we've been in crypto for 6 years now, and we've always constantly been talking about how are we going to onboard millions of people. And I think what's interesting is, I think there's a world where we've been building all this infrastructure to not onboard millions of people, but onboard millions of bots, right? Like
yeah.
an AI agents. And I think what's interesting is, like, you know we were talking about TradFi earlier, right? Like, if you think about how AI works, and like how these, these bots kind of need openness, and they need kind of like, all these endpoints to kind of like interact with all these protocols. And I think if you give an AI like agent or an LLM
Mm,
like, two choices,
mm,
interacting with the TradFi world, which has multiple
mm,
blockades. You have to like accept, get approval from each person you're talking to. Of course, there are things like API endpoints, but at the same time, you're getting like, different usernames, everything like that. Or the crypto decentralized DeFi version. I think 10 times out of 10 they're gonna pick DeFi, right?
yeah.
So I think the two ways that I really think about it is, I think AI is gonna be able to be proven and kind of like confirmed, and made kind of like concrete with crypto, and then crypto will kind of be have a perfect interface with AI. So I think the marriage actually is like really interesting, and I think it's an intersection that a lot of investors and people will kind of like mid curve, right? They'll
Mm,
kind of like think that oh, okay, like this is just a hype cycle or something like that.
mm,
And I think that's what excites us about it, is I think
mm,
a lot of people aren't taking it as seriously as they should.
yeah.
Anil, I mean, while you were answering this, my mind was still on the previous question, where you said most of the world is late when it's on Twitter or on Medium articles or research reports, right? And you said you do something different. Though you answered that, I actually want to know, what is it? What is that source? Is it that it's special to Delphi Digital, or I mean,
Talent,
again, for
maybe
people like
talent.
us?
Yeah, you know what? That's really why I brought up the hiring process. Is
Mm,
fortunately we just find people who are perpetually curious, who are always looking for alpha insights, kind of like things that are interesting to them. So we have obviously they're three separate businesses, but we do have 2 to 3 chats that the whole team across all three divisions is in, and those chats you can kind of see the ideation kind of form, and then how we get to certain theses or reports or investments or incubations. And what's really cool about it is it's a team sport. So I think like, you know, like, of course they're brilliant people, within our team, and of course at, many other funds and firms out there, for sure. But I think what's so special about how we've kind of like arranged it is, with these three divisions, right? Research, ventures, labs. We have, top tier talent that gives us different perspectives for everything that we're looking at. So you don't just get this analytical perspective via research, you get the builder's mindset via labs, and then the investor's mindset via ventures too. So, say someone on the research team brings up an idea, like, for example, one of our analysts, Rinko, has been super bullish on MetaDAO, right? Which is like this futurarchy on Solana for a while. He brought this up in our chats, and he saw this from the research lens, and now then you have our conversation in the chat goes from the ventures lens. Okay, is this investable? Why is it investable? What is the thesis here? How big can it get? On the labs arm, okay, like from a builder's perspective, will builders use it? Why would a builder use it? Could they build this themselves? And I think these different viewpoints allow our team on all different angles to kind of like make very more informed decisions than they would in a silo, right?
Yes. So I want to insert one thing here. So I recently learned you guys have this Delphi Day, right? So Delphi Day things. So one of the things, the way I think is, I call it kill your darling. That's one of my things. Once I have a thesis, and then I try to kill that thesis. And I lately learned that you guys have a complete day on that. Something where nobody talks good about Delphi. Can you explain that process? Because that's such a fascinating. When I learned that, like it hit me really good. So can you explain that demo? Delphi Day?
Yeah, we call it shit on Delphi Day, which
okay.
Pardon the language, but yeah, basically, we pick a day. We try and do it like once every quarter. Sometimes it kind of goes, a little bit longer. And we always do it when we have an in-person retreat. I think that's like our favorite kind of time to do it, because like then people can't, run away or hide from it, right? Because I think it's harder to like type out things that you like hate or upset about. But what we do is basically say, hey, today no one can say anything good about Delphi, so everyone just tell us everything that bad, right? And we talk about each division. We talk about things, reports that we've written. We've talked about incubations. We've talked about investments. And the cool part is everyone gets a chance. And you can have research people shitting on ventures. You can have ventures people shitting on research. But more often, it's usually the people complaining about like themselves and kind of like where we can improve, where they can improve in their own division, right? And I think that's the beautiful part of it. Usually it's very free, like open, so it can be about anything. But there have been times where we've done this for specific, sectors or specific divisions. So, one recent one that we did at the end of last year was a big one on our gaming portfolio, because myself and one of the other partners at Delphi, Jose, we thought, listen, we're still bullish gaming, but we've been made so many gaming investments, and of course we know it's going to take time, but why are we deploying more in it here? Because like we have enough exposure, right? If gaming works out now, we're gonna be good. Like we will have enough exposure. So we did one, and the cool part is on that day we actually had people who were like, okay, like we'll do a debate, right? Like and what our Jan and Pierce, two of our gaming leads, did was they set up calls with they brought in a bunch of our portcos, our gaming portcos, to just present to us what they were working on, why they thought it was an important thing to work on, and what problems they'd already solved this year. And yeah, honestly, it was fun. It was a funny shit on Delphi Day because it made me very bullish. And at the end of the day, I walked in feeling bearish, and I walked out feeling very bullish. So yeah, I think it's really important for organizations to do that. And I think like, crypto is an interesting place where obviously, there are a lot of mercenaries on crypto Twitter. People are always taking shots and stuff like that too. And to be honest, we love, people who critique us. But at the end of the day, one thing that we've realized time and time again is like, we think we are, almost the best critics of ourselves, right? And we don't hold anything back. And I think we want to improve more than people want to point out our flaws. So that's kind of like one thing that has been, a really big part of Delphi culture for sure.
So Anil, now coming back to the current times, there are two questions I have on the current time. Let's start with the first one. What we've observed and noticed is, especially in the last 6 months, a lot of new project listings, even the reputed ones, they are kind of struggling even to maintain their listing price. And I believe that's been
a question which a lot of new projects are still trying to figure out, right? How do we get, how do we launch? How do we get listed? I mean, there were the ICO days, then the IDO days, then they come up with airdrop strategies. And we still haven't found that sweet spot. You know what? This is the way we'll do it, though there's a lot of experiments going on. So the question is, I believe I've read somewhere that Delphi is working to address this issue. Would you like to share some
Le-
light on that or give your thesis
Legion,
behind
I
that?
believe. Am I right on the name? Is
Yeah.
it from the Legion? Yeah. Yeah.
Yeah, exactly. So Legion, actually, we just came out of stealth. I believe it was earlier this week, but it might have been at the end of this week. But anyway, if you search them, legion.csc on Twitter, they've just kind of gone public with, how they're attacking the problem. And by the way, I think they're, one of many possible solutions, right? I think there's a lot of great teams kind of building towards this. I think what Kobe's doing with Echo is really interesting.
Yeah.
And I really like that approach as well. What Legion's doing is basically more so from the bottoms up, where essentially you build kind of like a score and a resume for people who are investing. And it'll, use certain laws in Europe and stuff to let non-accredited investors invest. Obviously the US is going to be a little bit more difficult and, we'll take some time to figure out. What's cool about it is it kind of brings ICOs back again. It's kind of like the whole tagline of what we're trying to do there.
Yeah.
What's cool about it is I think projects can kind of launch via Legion and get much more distribution, as well as a different investor base than just big venture capital firms that maybe not add as much value, or will take a big chunk and not add enough value for how much of the token supply they're taking. So I think that's like a really interesting. I'm super excited about it. What's really cool about Legion that I think is very unique is its sister company is MetaLex, which is kind of like a legal on-chain law firm started by Gabriel Shapiro that we've also incubated. Gabe used to be our GC, and now he's leading that project. And basically the way you can think about it is he'll go to a bunch of our portcos, a bunch of other clients, and say, hey, what do you guys need help with? Whether it's on-chain governance, data partnerships, grain agreements, or even contractor agreements, right, for people that they hire. And then what they'll do is do it in an unscalable, legal, law firm agency type way in the traditional form. But then what they'll do is work with our labs team and automate that and build that in on-chain. And then everything that Gabe Shapiro and MetaLex is going to be doing is going to be a feature set of Legion. So what's really cool is, I think Legion right off the start will be, very useful because it'll give you distribution to, a holder base in a compliant way to do an ICO again. But, 6 months, 9 months, 12 months down the road, everything that MetaLex does that we automate and build on chain will immediately make this exponentially better, right? So I think 12 months from now, it'll be, by far the best type of, launch pad. And I don't really calling it a launch pad, but that is in a way one of its main features, right? So I think Legion is going to be really interesting here. And I think you're going to continue to see more and more efforts in this direction.
Coming back to the same question about, I said I had two questions, right? About the current cycles. If you actually look at it, if you want to break cryptos into cycles, especially after the Ethereum launch, we've seen we're in the third cycle, a 4-year cycle, right? So in the first cycle, we saw that all tokens, anything and everything were pumping. In the second, tokens which had stories to tell, or they were showing dreams, this is what we're going to do, those were pumping. Right now in the current cycle, what we are seeing is today people are differentiating between the performing and the non-performing tokens. We no longer want stories, we no longer want dreams. If you're performing, we'll invest. So you think this is a sign of a maturing market? If yes, how do we navigate the space going forward, and what role does Delphi play in this?
Yeah, it's interesting. I would kind of reframe it a little bit. I'd say the second cycle was more, I think the cycles that I see, or, at least participated in, were more so you had DeFi, which was really exciting because I think DeFi and the direction that crypto was taking during that time, of course you had food coins and, all that, all the above. But what was exciting is that, especially for us as a fundamental research firm, it was really a lot of fun because we basically saw what we saw in TradFi being built on chain with real revenue models, real business models, and providing real value. So that was an exciting time. Obviously, then you had, the gaming, metaverse, and NFT craze, which obviously we played a big role in with Axie and Yield Guild. And I think NFTs were, really interesting. And I think, people always say, were NFTs valuable, etc. I think NFTs were super important because they kind of brought culture into crypto. And I think they will continue to have cycles. Although I know, if you look at the charts right now, it's probably not that bullish. I think as far as like, how you framed it about like, the current cycle being in things that perform and things that don't perform. I think that's like how it is every cycle, like people will lean into the winners and kind of get out of the losers. I think like, obviously this cycle you've kind of seen two big metas. Obviously like Solana, I think was the biggest kind of like liquid win that, your normies as well as your crypto degens could kind of get, a lot of upside, right? Like it was under $10 for a while, and you could get, you could get easily a 10x from it, from where it is today, almost a 20x at some points. So I think that was obviously a big one. And if you didn't catch that, there was, that there were a lot harder ways to make money, as well as a lot, like, because the other part of the meta was like meme coins, right? And our team talks about this a lot. We have some people on the team that are like, hey, meme coins are, almost a better way to get leverage without, having any liquidation risk, right? So like you buy, on obviously Telegram's big this week. So there's like this Redo, this resistant dog coin there, right? That's like the biggest meme coin there. So if you want to get beta on Ton, you would say buy Redo instead, right? Because, if Ton goes up by 2x, like Redo should hopefully outperform. So that's a way that a lot of our, especially our markets team, like Jason and stuff, think about it. And then you obviously have a lot of like, haters, meme coin haters within Delphi, like Duncan of Flood Capital, who, one conversation we had a really good conversation earlier this year at one of our retreats was like, I was doing the meme coin craze, and I'd say crypto Twitter, 90% plus attention was on meme coins.
Yeah.
Delphi chats, 90% plus attention was on meme coins. Like even us as a fundamental research shop, we're just talking about meme coins, shit posting about them, aping them, sharing memes about them, etc. Right? And one point that we were talking about was like, you didn't, how we went around in a circle and we said, how much of your PA, your portfolio is in meme coins right now? And I think the average answer was less than 10, 15% at that point. So even for the people who were very bullish, right? And I think that was, that made this cycle a little bit harder, because even if you were bullish on meme coins, you couldn't get the conviction where Solana, you could put 40, 50, 60, percent. Some people have 100%, right? Their portfolio. And, that's not that crazy to me, right? Like if you have 100% of your crypto portfolio in Solana, I'm not going to call you crazy. If you have 100% of your crypto portfolio in WIF, that would kind of scare me, right? So I think that was an interesting dynamic where even though meme coin was such a big meta, you at least a lot of the degens and a lot of the people who usually were ahead of the curve couldn't get the conviction to put in a sizable part of the portfolio into that, right? So even though it was performing, how much can you really put into that? So I think that's like an interesting way to, think about the space too. And then obviously you have, big launches like, Celestia, we're big investors in, Athena, we're big investors in too. You saw a lot of excitement at their launches. They both go up a lot. And then they kind of like bleed for a while, right? Because people are nervous about unlocks and things like that. I think, and obviously I'm biased here because, we're investors in both those projects, but I think people are really underwriting how important both those projects are to the space. I think like, Athena from a stable coin, with an ecosystem built around an angle. And I think they have like probably the best BD in crypto right now, like rivaling Polygon at its peak. And then I think on the other side, Celestia is actually, I think has a lot of stuff ready to launch on it. And they're just waiting for the most opportune moment. Right. And I think that's also potentially going to surprise to the upside. So I think, I'm hopeful, and obviously I'm a fundamental investor at heart. So, I'm hopeful that fundamentals matter, and are top priority again. I think that would be a sign that it's maturing. If anything, I think in the last 9 months, the market has shown signs of immaturity, which is also fine. I'm not a hater for that. I think like meme coins, do have some benefits of, they onboarded so many people in Solana, which now, protocols like Jito or DPIN or Grass and stuff can benefit off those users being already onboarded. but at the same time, they do have their own downside, right? Of like, what I was saying earlier about not letting people have conviction and get, sizable exposure to them, as well as, we've backed so many builders in the space who've been building for 2-3 years, and, they see, someone spin up, a picture with a dog with a hat and, make, 10, 20, 50x what they're making, putting all this hard work in for years. It's obviously gonna, strike a nerve, right? So, yeah, I think I'd say recently, if anything, I felt like it's been immaturing, but that's fine. It comes in waves.
Yeah. So again, you preempted I wanted to ask your views on this, the hot topic. So what I see is currently, if you look at from a very, not 10,000 foot, we kind of have three cores. We have the big institutions investing in ETFs like Bitcoin, Ether, and then we have VCs obviously investing in infra and fundamental projects, as you call. Whereas the retail itself is kind of, I don't know, the VC coins have been losing the favor, and they are going to gravitate towards meme coins, as you spoken. So these three cohorts, I wanted to know your views. What do you think? Are there any learnings? Where do we go from here? Do you think the fundamental will come back? Any particular views on? Because this is a hot topic in crypto
Yeah,
these
for
last few
sure.
months.
Yeah, people constantly complain about like, that model and, VCs and everything like that. I think like, people need to take a step back though and like realize that you're kind of looking in a mirror, right? Like,
Yeah.
the market is doing what, it's being told to do, right? At the end of the day. And I think like VCs are probably not the only, ones to really, I think they kind of get their fingers pointed too much. Most VCs are not, value add and telling people, oh, this is how you should launch a token or anything like that. They're just kind of investing and kind of hoping to go along for the ride. I think if anything, you can like point fingers at like things like market makers and exchanges and stuff like that, where a little bit more control in price and dumps and everything like that. But that's a story for another day.
Yeah.
I'd say like, as far as the low float, high FTV meta, obviously that's like, obviously that's been something that's like a hot topic. I think the ideal world would be, high float, high FTV, right?
Yeah.
But like,
Yeah.
the goal is to get there, for sure. I think you have to try different distribution methods. And I think, a lot of these protocols, they have so much hype. They built so much hype in marketing around their launches that they kind of reach valuations that, don't make any sense. And then they just bleed. And I think that hurts both the community, that hurts the team momentum and everything like that. So I think you do need to try different launches. And, on the Delphi consulting side, I've joked with a few clients where a lot of these clients come to us and say, hey, we want, a really good token launch. And I've joked with them. I said, hey, like, what if I told you the best token launch is a bad one? You kind of launch with no hype. You launch, where you're really just letting your community build from the ground up and kind of get involved early. Because I think what works so well for communities like Synthetics and Link and everything like that is a lot of those people were able to get in at such, low prices that they became community members very early on. And, because they ran up so much, it doesn't matter if, Synthetics is at $6 or $10, they're still up so much that, they're going to be loyal and kind of like, pay attention to what's happening in the protocol. So that's one version of that. I think the other version is like, right now communities are very mercenary and very kind of like, and it's not their fault. Like, even us on this call, right? Like, I'd say like, we're probably more friendlier than most, I'd say degens, but even we're mercenaries at the end of the day.
Yeah.
If something's not working out or something like that, we're going to sell it and move on to another protocol. I think a lot of these protocols need convicted long-term holders. And I think where that really comes in is, onboarding more users into the space who are not as mercenary as crypto's kind of like, painted everyone else to be in this space. So it'll take time, but I think these things will sort, the market will kind of resolve itself, especially if, the market seems to be sending a signal that they don't like low float, high FTVs. So projects are going to have to try things out like Legion, like Echo, as well as different distribution models, right? So hopefully, hopefully some of this stuff works out. Yeah.
So
Awesome.
Sushil, on the same topic, I just want to add, I sometimes struggle with this, whether this is good or bad, because in crypto, on one hand, you have these VCs who get exit liquidity very early. before, I mean, I'm comparing to TradFi world. Okay. So they have this exit, which is good. So and more VCs will come into the space, more money will come into this because they have early exit, not only probably exit before even you're getting a PMF for a product. Okay. At the same time, this early exit is causing this high float, a low FDV kind of a situation. So I don't know whether, how do you see? Is it a feature or a bug? This early exit which VCs get.
Yeah, yeah, I guess it's a good question. I think again, everything has trade-offs, right?
Mm, mm,
I think it's obviously seen as a feature because that's why
mm,
people have flocked to crypto
mm,
markets.
mm.
People love it. People love that they can, and I think that's why ICOs were so exciting because you could fund a lot of ideas that maybe other investors wouldn't be funding, etc. Now the problem becomes when investors and especially the team, right? If the team and investors get rich off something that doesn't get PMF, then they don't really have an incentive to make it have PMF. So I think you could do things where obviously longer vest or certain projects are trying that out, as well as like milestones, especially for the team. I think that's really important to keep the team incentivized. Because I think for an investor, it's important that the project stays true to its thesis, and if that thesis changed, then that early liquidity is definitely a feature.
Yeah.
But obviously there's a lot of ways that it can be a bug as well, right? As far as like what I was saying
Correct.
about getting these people rich before they reach PMF. So
Yeah.
yeah, I'd say there are trade-offs to both for sure. Yeah.
Sure.
Yep. So yeah, coming back to the current times, because that's we are talking about markets. Uh, Anil, I wanted to know, a lot of people actually waiting for this. A lot of talk has been going on whether are we really in a bull market or a bear market, and what's happening right now. What they're calling is right now the boring zones going on, right? So without asking any price predictions, I wanted to know what do you think about this entire boring zone, and when will the banana zone start, or when will the bull run start? Your take on that?
Yeah. Yeah. People in America, they say that this period is like everyone's in the Hamptons or traveling Europe, like, or something like that. So, yeah, people always trying to attribute it to something. I think like realistically, and I've said this, recently on, the Blockworks Empire podcast too, like I'm permeable. So, definitely take, everything I say with a grain of salt, but, I'm personally like, the most bullish I've been probably since I entered crypto, just for this not just the market and macro structure, but just like the regulatory structure of what's going on in crypto too. So, obviously we have ETFs, which we've been waiting on for so long. We have, rate cuts coming literally in, a couple weeks probably, right? And, rates are pretty high right now. So, we have a long way down to go. So I think that's pretty exciting. I think the other thing is obviously the election, right? That's awesome. And I think like what I constantly think about is when we first got it, when my partners and I first got into crypto, and a Bitcoin ETF sounded so crazy, but it was still something that we would bring up and kind of say, hey, it could happen, and I don't think it's gonna happen this year or next year or whatever, but it could happen. And we finally reached out not only for just a Bitcoin ETF but an ETH ETF, which I don't think anyone is expecting this year, right? So I think those were kind of crazy bullish catalysts, but I think, back then, and even, as recent as like a year ago, like no one was talking about what if the governments would support us, right? And in the US, like, I think the way that I think about crypto at its core is like, it is kind of anti-government technology, right?
Yeah.
It kind of removes the middleman. It's censorship resistant. It is to give people an option away from using things that the government forces on you, right? And the fact that you have a promising candidate like Trump, who was also a previous president who didn't used to like crypto, now flip his switch and now realize, hey, listen, this is not only a big demographic that is pretty wealthy, as well as has a lot of people, especially in states on the coast that are usually maybe blue states, that I can potentially swing my way. But even talking about, I don't think he said the word strategic reserve, right? But like like keeping Bitcoin on the Treasury's balance sheet
Not
and stuff
selling it.
like that, I think is kind of crazy. And I think what's actually more insane is, now you have, obviously Kamala has a lot of, is flip-flopping on a lot of her policies, it seems like. 1 week it seems like her party's bullish and excited, 1 week it doesn't. But I think what's interesting is, because of these short-term incentives that these guys have with their 4-year election cycles, we've kind of gotten in that perfect zone of both these parties pandering to us. And, I think this period is really important, where we kind of have to not just call them out on their bullshit, but kind of like hold them to a lot of the things they're saying. And I think Trump has been pretty clear. But I think, Kamala, if she is interacting with more crypto people and saying, hey, I know she did the crypto for Harris, which, I thought was funny because it's literally crypto for her, where it should be Kamala for crypto, right? So it's funny that she even did that. But, if she starts making any promises, we have to hold these guys to those promises. Because my worst case scenario is, these politicians, who honestly, obviously I'm in crypto, so I'm a little bit, negative towards politics. Like I feel like you can't really trust them or take them at their word usually. But I think my worst case scenario is these guys pander to us, we vote for them, we help get them elected, and then as soon as they get elected, they flip, or they just, most likely just don't do anything and don't even bring it up again, right? That would be a really bad case for, I think, crypto. I think what I would love to see though is if, someone like Trump is elected and he does, have changes like the regime over how, the regulatory agencies and stuff look at crypto and how crazy they are. And if they actually set some good laws and stuff, I think that will bring a whole new kind of bull market to crypto that I don't think people are really pricing in or thinking about right now. So yeah, I'm obviously permeable, but I'm bullish TLDR.
I read somewhere that there are more crypto owners in states than dog owners. And that was superb. Like, there are more crypto owners than dog. It would be very, very difficult for them to ignore going forward, right?
Yeah, for sure. I'm surprised they've ignored it this long. Them being friendly, like Trump being so friendly to it, has been very surprising to me. It feels like a lucid dream or something like that. Yeah.
And probably there is no upside to going against crypto, right?
For sure. Because the people who don't own it aren't voting for that, right? It's not like something like abortion or anything like that, where people have very strong views against it, right? They're not winning any votes by saying, hey, we hate crypto, by the way. And everyone's like, oh, cool, us too. Maybe it'll help with donations from banks and stuff, right? Is the way I see it. But other than that, I think the people who are for it, obviously, and you've seen this, right? People have become single issue voters, whether that's good or bad, for crypto. Because, this is a lot of people's livelihoods. We feed our families off this. So it is very important to people like us who are, spending all day in the market.
Yeah. Okay. So again, Anil, pivoting to the research question. Okay, this is where I think my interest lies. So this is where so the way I look at Delphi research is that, because I've read many research reports, okay, blog post report, many substacks on that. The one thing I find unique about Delphi's research is that you guys also have skin in the game, right? Because not only you have a research arm, you have a venture arm, and your research goes into venture investing. Is that the reason there is more alpha in Delphi research? Does that skin in the game? Is that something where you guys slightly have the edge above every other research available?
Yeah, I think so. They are separate businesses, right? So our research isn't always writing about ventures, and we're not going to write about every venture's investment. Although I personally think if we're invested in something, we're probably bullish. So there's probably going to be something that we should write about. And obviously there is a bunch of overlap for Celestia and Athena. Celestia we wrote about before we actually invested, and then we invested because we liked the research report. Right. We basically were subscribers at that point. And like the research team's work, and then invested based off Delphi research. On the skin in the game side though, our analysts, because they're so, they obviously, a lot of them are able to invest in the fund. A lot of them have exposure to Delphi Ventures, etc. But most of them are just looking for alpha for their own portfolios. At the end of the day, that's what they care about. And they want to make, they want to find alpha. They want to find that next thing so they can build a lot of conviction in it, put, 10, 20, 30% of their net worth into this thing. And, that takes a lot of due diligence and a lot of, like you said, skin in the game that I think makes the research way more actionable than you'll find anywhere else, right? So yeah, I think skin in the game is like a huge part. I think it does go back to the two things I said earlier, though, is like, because we're telling them you can't look at what crypto Twitter is looking at, it allows them to kind of look in areas that, most people are, I think the best part about crypto Twitter for us is it ends up distracting everyone else for us, right? Because we're not looking at it. We'll check crypto Twitter and like, oh, okay, today everyone's talking about this news story that, people are going to forget about in like 24 hours. And people are constantly dopamine scrolling on crypto Twitter. And while they're doing all that, our research team gets to be like, all right, let's go in the trenches and find something that people are going to be talking about in 2, 3, 4 weeks. And you want to get in before that conversation even, pops up on crypto Twitter. Yeah.
So do
Nice.
the pitch, how does the collaboration work? Research, do the research team pitches the venture team? Is there, how does that work?
It can go both ways, which is like the fun part. So just generally the way that our investment committee works is like our ventures team will obviously, get a lot of inbound, find a lot of deals. Our ventures are always looking for investments. And our research team is just always looking for just things to write good reports on. And if they do find alpha, they'll publish the report and then send it to the ventures team and say, hey, I thought this was really interesting. You should look into this. But usually our ventures team is, just bringing their own deal flow into ventures. And our venture ISC process is, infamously a little bit slower than most other funds. And I say, slow, but it's really 2 weeks minimum, is the way that I think about it, which, in a bull market, that's very slow. Most, in the bull market, deals close in like 3-4 days usually. But, the way that why it's 2 weeks is the first week, our team brings it to pre-IC or the investment committee. They basically present it to, myself and the partners. They get some of our questions down. We say, hey, these are a few things that we need to understand a little bit better on the main IC. And then the week after, what they do is they'll bring it. And obviously our ventures analysts, their incentive is to get it passed, right? They earn carry if, they get this deal passed and it makes money. So they want us to deploy as much money as possible into their deals, just to get as many shots on net. So on week 2, what's cool is we bring in our research team and the people who are, have subject matter experts on those specific sectors or topics or protocols. And then they just debate, honestly. And I think that's my favorite I see every month is like when our research team is just picking apart what our ventures team is talking about. And to be honest, it's sometimes, we say no to most investments that even come to our IC, which is already very filtered. But those conversations, I think, like lead to such good discussions, and they've ended up netting some of our best reports as well as, some of our best investments, right? So yeah, I think like that process has been, a lot of fun for us to just keep iterating on.
Nice. So so you've been sitting on top of the 3 arms and overlooking the entire things. So a personal question: what are you more excited about in the current days? What projects are you looking at or working on?
What sectors?
Yeah. I think like, so I'd say labs is the division I probably spend the least time in. So that's a division I don't really look after. Jose and Luke from, the head of labs, they do a great job on that. But yeah, I do spend a lot of time on research and obviously ventures. So obviously on the lab side, we talk about Legion and Metalex. Those are the 2 parts, incubations that I'm personally most excited about. So definitely check those out. We have been, ideating about, and by the way, we kind of like wanted to, the way that labs works is basically we, come up with an idea, we find a team, we incubate, and then we spin it out. And, about a month ago, we said, hey, no more incubations. Let's just focus on the ones that we have right now, spin them out, and then go from there in like 9 to 12 months. But this week we were on a call and we came up with another really interesting idea that I'm excited to share hopefully in a few months. If we, so TLDR, we're really bad at, saying no to things. Then on the venture side, there's A bunch, honestly, and I'll probably have to do a thread. I want to do a thread on this just because like that's me writing is also the way that I can kind of get my thesis down too. But I'd say there's again a couple different sectors that we've like obviously been looking at on the AI crypto side. Like the Tower and the Square report is public. Feel free to like have people go look at that. We have parts 2 and 3 out right now too, which are just for Delphi members. But anyone who listens to this pod, they want to DM me, I'll give that to you guys for free. Then on and on the AI and crypto intersection, there's a couple there that our teams are really excited about. Like I'll just say the names just to go through it quick, but like MyShell, it's basically like character AI, but like tokenized. That's one that we invested in with Dragonfly. Pretty excited about that. Inference Labs and Nous Research is two that my team is super excited about. To be honest, like the thesis there goes over my head right now. So I'm still talking to our team to figure out like why, I kind of trust my team on this for sure, but it's something that makes me very curious. So I think there is something there. Gaming is obviously a sector that like I said, we've invested a lot. Hytopia is basically like a decentralized Minecraft that uses Minecraft's like you don't need to build it by yourself. You can kind of like leverage Minecraft already. So that's one that we're excited about. Internet Game is one that we invested in that is doing something big at Solana that is coming out of stealth for a while now. They're really exciting. And then on the infra side, Initia, which is that kind of doing this ecosystem of rollups that are like way more interconnected than ever before, is something that I'm really excited about too. They have a really good team too. Shout out Zahn, the founder. I think there's those are the venture side, and then on the research consulting side, we have worked with protocols like Anoma. We're working with a few right now. They're coming out of stealth. That by the way, the way that we do consulting is every project that we help, we kind of like post a lot of the work or a retro about it on our site for free. So that's not like part of the paid subscription or anything like that, but that way we're being very public about like the work that we're doing and sharing that and open sourcing it for everyone. So if you go to our website and go to the Delphi creative or consulting side, you'll be able to see all those reports. We did one for like optimism recently that was like really deep, and I think is really cool to learn about like their super chain vision as well as like what we think about it. And yeah, honestly, like I'm just excited for the space in general and Delphi as a whole. And that's why we built Delphi the way it is, because we have our arms, ears, and, hands like everywhere. Right. So it's fun to be able to like be that deep and be in the trenches and, have this team that's kind of like constantly looking for, ways to like add value to the space.
Lots of alphas you shared in this
so much
answer
alpha.
of yours.
Yeah.
Definitely worth checking them out.
Yeah. No,
Very
thanks
low,
for
very
that.
low.
Yeah. In fact, so now here's a personal question. The unique thing about the crypto space is it's open 24/7. It's open on weekends. And you get into research. You recently got married. I mean, we are struggling. I know Jagdish and I are struggling. How do you maintain that balance between your family life, your work life, your research, and everything? How do you do that? I mean, you're in Spain right now.
No, it's a good question. I think this is something that people need to like focus on more. People are always asking questions about like the alpha or the being in the trenches and the degenness and everything like that. And I think if you stay too close to it, you kind of miss a lot. I think for me, like, again, I think like I see the lines, the line is just up to the right for me. I think as far as like where crypto is going. So that allows me to be a little bit more comfortable and kind of take a back seat and kind of like be comfy in spot, as they say, right? And fortunately, I've made some of my best friends through this industry. So, we're able to, I'm in Spain for a friends engagement party who works in crypto as well. And like, we get to hang out a lot, and most of the talk and discussion that we have is not about crypto. So I think that's always a good sign because, I think like, life is short, so you should definitely like, live it. My wife and I obviously spend a lot of time together. She, comes everywhere with me. And I think that's actually the most important part is just taking a step back and kind of like breathing and, kind of, just enjoying life, spending time with family and friends. because the markets are always going to be there. They're never going to shut off, like you said. So they're never going to give you the opportunity to leave. So you got to take the opportunity yourself. And I think, this boring period it's funny that people call it boring because sure, markets may be boring, but there's a lot of alpha to be found. And then that might be a great time to be able to take time to, spend with, your wife or your family, etc. And that's really, I'm definitely good at that, at taking breaks. And, when we first started Delphi, we took no breaks for the first 3 years. Like it was 24/7, 365. And, it was super productive, but it was definitely not healthy. And I think at the end of it, when we had finally, somewhat made it and been able to take some time off, I realized how much productive I could be if I did take some time off. So then when I was working, I could be 100% in it rather than giving it my 50% 24/7.
Superb. So let me ask you a very light question, right? Because crypto space, as we know, has a fantastic sense of humor. I remember me and Jagdish talk and laugh about small things happening every single day, right? So I wanted to know Anil Lulla as a person. Do you have any funny story in this space, in this industry, or you have a special meme moment?
Man, there's so many. Crypto has been my life for like 6 years now. Delphi just turned 6 this month. So it feels like, and obviously in crypto time moves much, much slower and faster. So it feels like decades at this point. Yeah, like when we quit our jobs, basically, my MD, who was like probably one of the smartest women on Wall Street, like, and just smartest people generally, to be honest. But like at that point, you got to realize, like, if she was, an MD in Wall Street, she had been working there for 30, 40 years, so she had to be like super sharp, right? But she was cutthroat too. My partner Jan and I, we were on the same team, and we went into her office to tell her that we were quitting to start our own crypto research company. And we were explaining it to her, and she kind of like thought we were joking for the first like 20 minutes of the sit down. And then we're like, oh no, like we're like she's like, why are you guys wasting my time? Like, well, like, are you guys don't have work to do or something? Or like, oh, like no, like we're totally serious, like we're actually gonna go start this thing. It's like, oh, like, she's like, really? Like, I thought, at that point, Bitcoin had fallen from 20K to 6K. So we also thought we were quitting at the bottom, which obviously was not the case because it dropped another 50% after that. But I remember, us telling her, oh no, like, yeah, we're doing this. And she's like, oh, but like, I thought Bitcoin died. Like, isn't it already dead? And we're like, no, like, we think it's going to come back. And she's like, oh, like, all right. Like, he's like, I've seen people do some pretty crazy stuff here, but this is definitely like, up on that list. And she said, as we were walking out, she said, hey, like, one thing, we really like obviously enjoyed having you guys. Like, if you guys, if this thing doesn't work out for you, like, just give me a call. Like, you will always have, a spot at Delphi, at Deutsche Bank. And, Jan and I, we're walking out of the office, and we both looked at each other like, there's just 0% chance we're coming back. And I think that was like the best thing she could have said when we were walking out, because it gave us this fire of like, oh, like, we're gonna work hard enough, so like there's just no shot that we have to pick up that phone and call her. So like, yeah, I think that was like, very motivating for sure.
You should actually call her and offer her a job at Delphi.
So I have someday some MD from Deutsche will probably join Delphi. So
Well, my dad has joined Delphi actually. He's our CFO. Yeah.
Oh, great. He's in
Awesome.
India.
Yeah. Sorry.
He's in New Jersey actually. He didn't make it to the event last November, which was a lot of fun.
Yeah.
You guys.
Good, Anil. You are in Spain. You are on a holiday, and I'm really glad you spent at least an hour with us. So won't stretch you more. One last thing. This is our first guest on the podcast, and we are again privileged to have you. Any giveaways or for our listeners?
Yeah, absolutely.
We are fans of this.
Yeah, definitely. So, I think us three, we actually talked about this in India in November. So it's,
Yes.
one like super, super excited to, be the first guest, and like love that you guys have, taken the step to create this. I think it's going to be, super, super helpful for the community over there and at large, to be honest. I'd say just from our podcast, like, one advice I'd give you guys is like, just be consistent with it and keep it up. I think our first 20 episodes, no one listened to. And then like we just started finally seeing some traction. So, hopefully that'll help. And as far as giveaways go, like, yeah, I think like obviously Delphi Research is more on the expensive side, right? We're definitely a premium product, and in India it's very hard, and it's been a market that I've wanted to kind of give back to in many different ways. And that was a conversation we were having in India in November too, like how I could give back, whether it was talking to founders and everything like that. And I think like it's difficult for people to subscribe and pay $500 a month or $5,000 a year or even the $10,000 plan, right? In India. So happy to kind of give the people kind of like in your community some of our reports for free.
Awesome.
I think I think you guys do a great job. So maybe what I'd work with you guys on is like over the next few months I'll give like 1 or 2 reports that you guys can kind of share with the community. You can also translate in Hindi. Mera Hindi bahut acha nahi hai, but you guys can help translate it, and that'll also be helpful for me because I can share it with a lot of the my and my wife's family in India, so that they can kind of read Delphi reports too. So yeah, would love to work with you guys on that.
Wow,
Thank you.
That's really exciting. We are looking forward to it. We are already excited about the Delphi reports, and now getting them to summarize before it comes in the market to all our people. So so thanks, Anil. By the way, before Anil leaves, for everyone else, we're going to summarize this entire podcast in Hindi, so that that's what our channel is all about. We're going to do that, and thanks, Anil. Thanks again. I can't express how grateful
Generous
I
you are
am,
being.
and been very generous, and thanks for entertaining people like us, who right now nobody, but on track to become a somebody one day like you. Thank you.
Totally. Everyone's a somebody. That's for sure. I'm super excited about what you guys are doing in the space.
Thank you.
Thank you, Anil. Thank you very much.